As a reward for her rescue, the boss bought the technician a splendid outfit. But when he decided to invite her to conclude the contract, he was taken aback. Beloved cleaner Ellie Brooks retired, and she was replaced by the new, young Jace. For some reason, the entire team took a disliking to the girl, who, in general, made a good impression. Perhaps it was because she replaced Ellie, a cheerful, kind woman always ready to give sound advice, sympathize with those having trouble at work or in life. Or maybe they simply didn't trust the young girl. No, seriously? They hired some random chick. What kind of cleaner is she? Probably just here to protect her nails. And definitely won't stay long. We'll hang around for a bit and then leave. She'll leave, but she'll sow discord here, mark my words. Why would such a young and pretty cleaner come here? And chasing after eligible bachelors, now that's why. Thinks this office, this firm is solid, so people here must be smart and decent, well off. Not like searching in some random store or factory. So soon enough, she'll be spinning around our fools, and if she's lucky, she might hook a few. Choices galore. You think? She seems quiet. Exactly, it's the quiet ones who do this kind of thing. So we'll have to deal with this mess. Better if she quits soon to save us trouble. Such and even more decisive conversations circulated around the office, but Jess was oblivious to all this. She started her duties, striving to work impeccably, being modest and polite with everyone, not trying to befriend anyone. And certainly not flirting with men, some of whom genuinely fit the description of eligible bachelors. Even the young manager, Jasper Connor, until recently in the background, since the firm belonged to his father, Connor Evan. Jasper, as the son of a wealthy man, received a good education and, having joined the company as a junior manager, proved himself in the best light. He often hinted to his father that he was capable of more. But Connor Evan was a strict man, not inclined to favor even his own son, especially his son. What do you want? For everyone to accuse me of favoring my son? Yes, you're doing well in your place. So stay there. We'll see later. And Jasper accepted it. Especially since he knew his own fault. At a young age, he was already unsuccessfully married, divorced, and raising his son alone. His wife, also young and capricious, a greedy person, hoped to secure her life through this marriage. Realizing her mistake, she even tried to shift her attention to her father-in-law, Connor Evan, who had long been a widower. But receiving an angry response, she got upset and left home. At that time, she didn't hesitate to leave little Leon with his father. Why do I need such a burden? I need to get married, she declared and left. Since then, nothing has been heard about his wife. She wasn't even interested in her son, who was already 5 years old. This mistake in his personal life became a reason for his father, time and again, to tell Jasper, "What can I expect from you, if you couldn't even choose a wife properly for yourself, your son's mother? How can you be so clueless about people?" And the son could only sigh, because he had nothing to argue with. But recently, Connor Evan had started to trust more, and eventually, without hesitation, he handed over the firm. However, he told Jasper that this would be a good test for him, so the young owner tried not to disappoint his father and tarnish his reputation. He didn't think about his personal life either. And he certainly didn't pay attention to the new technician. He also didn't notice the atmosphere prevailing in the office. Like any collective, various problems, intrigues, and romances constantly arose there. Recently, Jace had become the object of mockery and light ridicule, but she didn't care. Firstly, she thought that being at the very bottom of the career ladder was normal, just something to laugh about as a loser. And secondly, she didn't really notice it. She hadn't taken this job because she was incapable of anything else. Not long ago, she dreamed of becoming a doctor. She studied quite successfully, but then a tragedy struck her family. Her family was small, just her and her father. Her mother had died several years ago. They lived together happily, loving each other. Her father, Max Allen, was ready to do anything for his daughter. He worked as a chauffeur and earned well. They had enough money for her to successfully finish college. But an accident, for which Maxie was entirely blameless, disrupted all their plans. Her father became disabled, completely helpless. Jace had to leave her studies to take care of him. Besides, she tried to earn money for his treatment. She hoped that her father would recover and get back on his feet. Doctors said it was entirely possible. She couldn't find a job with decent pay in her desired field or anything related to medicine, like even a hospital janitor. There was work, of course, but the salary there was too low. So she went to the office. The salary was acceptable there, and the schedule was flexible enough. During the day, she could pay more attention to her father. Of course, she noticed her colleagues' attitude towards her, but she believed she had to endure everything to achieve her goal. And she endured. One morning, on her way to work, she witnessed a terrible scene. A child on a tricycle almost flew onto the road where cars were speeding by. If she had been just a minute late, it could have ended in a serious tragedy. But Jess rushed to the child, grabbed him together with the tricycle, and carried them onto the sidewalk. A woman, presumably the child's mother or grandmother, was already running towards them, and the girl understood the child was safe now. "Leon, how could you do that? Why did you leave me? I asked you to stay close," the stranger wailed. "Thank you so much, young lady. If not for you, these kids are so restless. Oh, it looks like you've torn your dress a bit." Jessica lowered her eyes and noticed that indeed, she had snagged something on the bike, and there was a quite noticeable pull on her dress. "It's okay," she said. "Please keep an eye on him. This place is dangerous. Don't let him go alone, please." Jess went to work, thinking about how she would have to spend the entire workday with that small yet quite noticeable snag. The defect wasn't that noticeable, really. After all, she was just a cleaner, not a fashion model. And she tore her dress for a valid reason: she saved a child. But she couldn't possibly explain that to everyone. The main annoyance was that, firstly, she had nothing else to change into, and her coworkers would definitely notice. This could give them new material for teasing her all day long. Why couldn't they just leave her alone? Didn't they understand she didn't take the technician job out of a good life? God forbid something similar happens to them. She never thought she'd have to work at such a lowly position. In the office, everyone immediately noticed both her arriving a few minutes late and that unfortunate snag. The lateness, of course, wasn't as important as what she was wearing. Nevertheless, it became a reason for exercising wit. Look how she rushes to work. Must have been through some bushes, tore the hem. And still late. Probably spent all night partying and forgot she had to work. Can't she change? She'll soon be wearing clothes with holes. I mean, her salary isn't that bad. Jasper Connor inadvertently overheard these conversations while he was at work that day. He felt sorry for the girl, diligent, careful. Why did they have to mock her? She was only 5 minutes late. This discussion wasn't worth it at all. And as for her appearance, well, nothing terrible had actually happened. When Jessica entered his office to clean up and collect the trash, he asked her what was wrong. Why were they discussing her so persistently? "They're discussing me? Well, I didn't notice. I don't listen to other people's conversations. And if someone doesn't like me, well, what can I do?" "Let them talk," she replied calmly. A worthy answer, the boss praised. "But maybe something really did happen to you? I see your dress is torn." "Oh, my God. It's such a trifle. I mean, I perfectly understand that being presentable in this state isn't nice, but in the end, I can just avoid showing up in front of anyone. I just have nothing else to change into right now. Actually, I take care of myself. This morning, there was an incident that I couldn't just ignore. Can you imagine a boy on a bike almost riding onto the road? So I grabbed him along with the bike, turned him around. I must have snagged it then. I don't know what happened." Jasper gasped. It turned out that his nanny had just called and told him about the exact same incident. She was very upset, crying, lamenting that a great tragedy could have occurred if not for the stranger who saved her son. Was the boy wearing a red jacket? His name's Leon? So it turns out you saved my son. Thank you so much. Oh, come on. I'll allow myself to answer with a cliché phrase anyone would have done the same. Jess smiled, then admitted, honestly, I was really scared when I saw him darting towards the edge of the road. There were so many cars, not all drivers would have reacted in time. But your reaction was remarkable. I will also react appropriately. Just leave your work now. Well, actually, I see you've already finished everything. Let's go. I'll reward you for your heroic deed. Oh no, please, I didn't do it for any reward, Jess protested. Nevertheless, I must do this. Please don't object. You saved my son, I can't just ignore that. Despite Jess's attempts to decline, she had to agree. She had no idea he would do something like this. He took her to the most expensive store to pick out the most beautiful dress. She was completely unprepared for such a grand gesture. She felt embarrassed but also grateful. She had never owned such a beautiful dress before. She couldn't even imagine where she could wear this dress. An hour later, they returned to the office, where all the employees were eagerly speculating on where the boss had taken Cinderella. Finally, Jessica returned with a beautiful box from the boutique, her radiant expression giving away that she had received some sort of gift. Well, what do you have there? Show us. Several female managers rushed into the locker room, eager to find out where the boss had taken the cleaner. Yes, here's the dress the boss bought to replace the ruined one, Jess said, barely containing her triumph as she proudly showed off. She opened the box. The girls gasped enviously. None of them dared dream of such a dress. They spent the evening marveling, admiring, and even feeling a bit jealous that someone they considered beneath them received such a luxurious gift. And when Jess left, other conversations began. I told you so. She's come for the boss. And she decided not to mess around, immediately grabbing someone, the boss himself. Well, what's there to hesitate about? He's the perfect catch. Do you really think he'll marry her? Well, okay, he gave her a dress. Maybe he'll take her out to a restaurant later. That's the extent of it. Ah, you silly women, one of the men grumbled, all you think about is love and carrots. But the matter, mind you, is much more serious. We've got a snitch in our department. That's Jessica. Our Jasper isn't stupid enough to parade his love in front of everyone. He's giving her gifts for some information. Do you think so? The other employees wondered. Some didn't believe it, but most were convinced that Jessica had indeed become the boss's trusted confidant, faithfully reporting everything that happened in the office. Some even found evidence to support this version. And here we were thinking he'd planted listening devices somewhere. Turns out, he doesn't need such complications. He's got live ears wandering around, waving a mop, another chuckled. Jessica came home happier than ever and immediately showed her new dress to her father. Max admired his daughter, displaying her outfit, yet felt saddened. Such a beauty forced to work as a cleaner because of him. But at the same time, he understood that such gifts weren't given lightly. Do you have a suitor now? He seems wealthy, but please, be cautious with him, Max remarked. Oh, Dad, what are you talking about? What suitor? I just happened to help a nice person, and he wanted to thank me, Jess replied. But her father couldn't ignore that his daughter seemed unsettled after his words and realized that this good person had touched her heart. What could he do? It was about time she fell in love. He just hoped this person was truly good. Max worried deeply for his daughter, knowing he couldn't protect her, and Jessica would be left vulnerable if anything went wrong. Yet, he believed they had raised her to be sensible and not to make foolish choices. Jess had no intention of making foolish choices. But she also didn't plan to deny herself the fact that she liked Jasper Connor. No, she didn't have any grand plans concerning him. She wasn't that presumptuous. She simply found him appealing. So when one day after work the boss approached and asked why she wasn't wearing her new dress, Jess shrugged. Wear it to work. Oh, come on, not that you, but everyone else would surely laugh at me. That's firstly. And secondly, I just feel sorry for it. But it's suitable for formal occasions, isn't it? He suggested. Yes, indeed. It's just a shame I haven't had a chance to wear it yet because such formal occasions haven't arisen. But as soon as. In that case, let's create such an occasion. I invite you to a restaurant. Please don't refuse, not for the sake of the dress, but because I'd like to sit and talk with you. Last time didn't work out, but I realized you're a very interesting conversationalist. Jess saw that he was offering without any ulterior motives. He wasn't making any inappropriate hints. Just a pleasant young man inviting her to a restaurant. And why not? Why should she deny herself everything? She hadn't been out for so long and could well afford to relax properly. Besides, she could show off her new dress too. After all, she was a young, attractive woman and didn't have to bury herself within four walls. And her dad probably wouldn't mind either. He always said she should be out among people more often. Well, here's her chance. Jess agreed, and the evening was truly wonderful. Following that, there were more evenings, not necessarily in fancy dresses or restaurants. They went to movies, theaters, simply strolled through parks or streets. They had time to talk and get to know each other. Jasper learned why Jessica had been forced to take a cleaning job, heard about her plans, and decided she shouldn't waste her time on low-skilled work. Eventually, he proposed she become a manager in the office, at least. I'm not sure about that. I'm completely unfamiliar with that kind of work, Jessica hesitated. It's not that difficult, especially since you have an education. Plus, you're level-headed. I assure you, many don't even have half of what you do, yet they work successfully. I don't think you'd be out of place in our office. Besides, the salary will be significantly higher, and you can achieve your main dream faster. Certainly, among the staff, it was no longer a secret that Jasper Connor was dating a cleaner. Rumors were loud about it. And when one day a new technician appeared in the office, an elderly woman, Jasper Connor introduced the staff to the new manager, Jess, who was formerly the cleaner, and there were no secrets for anyone. Moreover, they all were dissatisfied with the changes. But the boss could not see was why. Heard had? Jerusalem against the whom after? What text content? After the divorce, his father immediately told Jasper. Now, be more careful. You need to find a mother for your son, not just a wife. Jasper had responded seriously at that time, stating he had no intention of looking for anyone anytime soon. And he hadn't. He lived alone, taking care of his little one. Was he now ready for another rash move? It seemed there was trouble in his life. What good could come from such a union? Absolutely nothing. If they were lucky, there wouldn't be any harm. Yet it was particularly worrisome that he wasn't just seeing some attractive girl, but also actively promoting her at work. Indeed. This stirred concern, as well, making it necessary for Connor Evan to take matters into his own hands this time and have a serious discussion with his son to ward him off from acting rashly. That evening, he went ahead with his plan. He asked Jasper who the girl was in his life and if he did not allow a new fatal error. Jasper was highly displeased with his questioning. So I understand, Dad, you've got some trusted face doing sneaking around. Dishonorable activities, I'd say. Yes, agreed, said the father. But you see, I've got a reason. I'm concerned about you, and even more so about your son. Could the little boy come to harm at his tender age? I'm very glad you're familiar with fatherly feelings, just don't understand why you think I don't care for my son. Yes, I've met a girl. I like her, more than a little. Soon, we might even get married. Connor Evan was taken aback by this news. Really now? A familiar story. She likes me, so we'll marry. Sounds familiar from somewhere. I very much remember how that ended. You know, this time everything's completely different, Jasper added. She's genuinely a good girl. When you meet her, you'll see. She'll be great with Leon, I'm sure of it. She's kind, smart. She's been doing a great job as a manager at our farm. A cleaner, corrected Connor Evan. And that's already been reported. Yes, your informant's been on the ball. Jess started with us as a cleaner, but then I found out she's well educated. Circumstances meant she couldn't finish her education, couldn't find a suitable job. There's nothing strange about me offering her a position in my office. It doesn't mean I had any personal motives. And frankly, I'm hurt you're listening to someone who snitches and doesn't trust me at all. Thanks, of course, for your confidence. Sorry, but I don't have the same faith in you or her. That time, father and son didn't come to any agreement at all, but instead had a serious falling out. Connor Evan decided to independently investigate the situation. After their conversation, he called his informant, Casey Reed. Without delving into details, he requested the address of his son's girlfriend. It turned out Casey was prepared for this question and promptly provided him with all the information. Are you planning to talk to her yourself? Casey Reed couldn't help but ask. Forgive me, but I wouldn't advise doing that. It would be better to talk to her parents, although as far as I know, she only has a father, but I'm not entirely sure. Thank you for the advice. That's exactly what I intended to do, replied Connor Evan. Yes, he decided to speak directly with the father of his potential and entirely unwanted daughter-in-law. Firstly, to see what kind of person he was. Secondly, if he turned out to be reasonable, to explain that his daughter was completely wrong in trying to solve her problems by getting married. Connor Evan tried to visit the father of his supposed daughter-in-law when Jace wouldn't be home, that is, during the workday. From Casey Reed, he heard that the father of the girl is disabled, so he could catch him at home at any time. Arriving there, he rang the doorbell, and after a while, a man in a wheelchair opened the door, but that didn't surprise Connor Evan. What surprised him was that he recognized him. It was Jasper's father who had been in some way responsible for his disability. Yes, on that cursed day they were driving back from fishing with friends. They were all drunk and crashed into the car driven by this very man. Connor Evan wasn't behind the wheel, but he still felt guilty because he had given testimony that deprived this unfortunate man of any chance of receiving compensation. Maxim also recognized the visitor. He wasn't at all happy to see him and didn't expect anything good from the meeting. Although it was strange, why would a wealthy man who had set him up suddenly decide to show up after all this time? He asked Connor Evan about this. Why have you come? I don't think it's your conscience bothering you. Came to admire your handiwork? No, it's not quite about that. It's about a different matter. The visitor didn't immediately find the right response. What other business could we possibly have with you? Done something else and want me to testify in court that you're a good, wonderful person? The disabled man asked mockingly. No, well, you see. Connor Evan finally pulled himself together and decided to state his question directly. Well, you see, it's a small world, and it turns out that our children work in the same office. My son Jasper and your daughter Jessica. And it seems they've decided to get married. Or at least they have some sort of ambiguous relationship. But the thing is, my son owns that company now. I've passed it on to him. And she, as you know, is just an employee. So, I hope you understand. It's very clear. You want me to convince my daughter that she shouldn't jump into her sleigh, right? Well, I won't argue. I'll talk to Jace and I hope she'll at least take my words seriously and stop any relations with your family. Just imagine if this continues, you know, all sorts of rumors could start swirling. And it won't benefit you either, Connor Evan squeezed out, struggling through the unpleasant conversation, and I'm sorry about that incident. Maybe you need some help? He was genuinely ready to offer that help. What kind of help? Financial, I suppose. That's how you're used to solving problems. And what exactly would you pay for? For my disability or for talking to your daughter? I don't need anything from you. Just go your way and be more careful not to hurt anyone else. And have a talk with your son too, so he chooses his future wives more carefully next time. Who knows, he might end up with another one like the woman whose father you crippled." Connor Evan understood that the conversation was over. He said his goodbyes and left with a deeply unpleasant feeling. Maxim Allen was also not thrilled with the conversation, considering he had warned his daughter. But how could she have known she was getting involved with the son of such a man? Now, she faced a very difficult conversation, and it was uncertain how it would end. Jessica would likely be upset. She might cry, be devastated. Oh, what misfortune for her to fall in love with the son of such a man. And there was no doubt in his mind that Jessica was in love. It was already evident from her demeanor. The father decided not to delay the difficult conversation, and when Jessica returned from work, he immediately asked her to spare a few minutes. Without unnecessary words, he explained to his daughter who she was dating and shared his views on such relationships. "Dad, how awful," she whispered. "I had no idea." "Why did he come, Dad?" "Well, why would a rich man come to a poor man in such a situation? Especially if that rich man is also despicable. He asked me to talk to you, to explain that you're not a suitable match for his precious son. He has his own company, and who are you? Various rumors will spread, tarnishing our family name. That's why he came." "Did he really say that?" Jessica couldn't believe it. "Well, not exactly like that, but the essence was the same. That's what I'm telling you. You shouldn't get involved with that family. It's not Jasper you need to run from, but from all of them. No matter what, he'll always be his father's son. I understand you're in love now, and maybe he is too. That's actually a good thing. But anything could follow that love, especially when it fades. Let's say he goes against his father's wishes now, even quarrels with him. But in a year or two, he might realize it's all because of you. And that negativity will fall right on you, because his father has money on his side, and you have love on yours. Unfortunately, love tends to end, especially when the money runs out, and when you have genes like your Jasper's. So, my dear, I'm telling you, think carefully now while you have the chance. At the very least, look at it from this perspective. If you get married, can you imagine how your father's, his and yours, will meet at that wedding? Oh, Dad. I can't imagine, of course. But what I can't even fathom more is that Jasper and I might split because of such nonsense as our fathers, right? Indeed, one injured the other. Such trivialities. Anyway, let's end this unpleasant conversation. I'm not going to forbid you anything. Date him if you want to, communicate, get married, and have children. Just remember that there will always be something standing between you two. Dad, I'm sorry, but I can't promise anything right now. I need to digest all of this myself." And Jessica went to her room, pondering over the truly awful situation she found herself in due to what had transpired. Jasper also had an unpleasant conversation with his father, equally as heavy, but the young man was more resolute. He immediately stated that he had no intention of parting ways with Jess and would not stand on his father's side under any circumstances. "Yeah, I understand, I wasn't the one driving. But I also know that none of your company helped him in any way. So now I have to fix your mistake. Jess and I will be together, and I'll do everything to help her father. If this bothers you in any way, I can relieve you of our company. It's your will, of course. Your decision strikes me as extremely foolish. But I understand very well that my opinion means nothing to you anymore. It remains to be seen whether Jessica will want to continue seeing you after what she learns. I'm sure her father has already spoken to her. By the way, I think I'm still capable of correcting my own mistakes. Namely, paying for your girlfriend's father's treatment. I doubt it will reconcile you, but perhaps it will in some way compensate for the situation." Jessica and Jasper, of course, met the next day and talked about everything. "You know, Jess, my father still wants to help your dad with his treatment. What do you think about that? Jasper asked. Oh, Jasper, it's not good, Jessica replied. It would be better if your father didn't approach mine with such an offer at all. He won't accept anything. I'm afraid it will only make things worse. Please tell him that. But as for what we should do, I don't even know. And what can we do when we love each other? We'll still be together, no matter what anyone thinks. Let's not scare them with the news of our possible marriage for now. But just never forget that I love you and I can't imagine life without you. Connor Evan wasn't lying about paying for the treatment. He was quite determined about it already. But in the evening, his son told him that it would be better not to meddle with such an offer. For heaven's sake, how prideful we are. I didn't decide to propose something horrible to him, but treatment, correcting a mistake. What, does he not want to be healthy? Does he want to depend on his daughter for everything and eat away at her life that way? It turns out that I care more about this Jessica than he does. Don't doubt it, I'll find a way to give him the money. And these were not empty words. Connor Evan had already figured out how to help the person indirectly affected by his fault without hurting their pride. One day, Max Allen, strolling in his wheelchair near the house in the park, saw a woman sitting on a bench sobbing inconsolably. He understood that he might not be the best helper in such a situation, but he couldn't ignore her. He approached her, asked what had happened, and if she needed any help. The stranger looked up, tears streaming down her face, and said, "What help is there to give? At the end of my life, it seems I've become a homeless person. I sold my little house in the village, came to the city hoping to settle here. I thought I had money. Well, in a word, I was robbed on the train. I'm left with nothing. No money, no home. My relatives here are far away now. I've arrived only to find out they haven't lived here for a long time. Looks like I have nowhere to go now." Max Allen didn't hesitate long. He said he could help. "My daughter and I have a 3-bedroom apartment. Each of us has their own room, so one room is completely free. You could stay with us, at least temporarily. Perhaps you'll find a job and then rent your own place." "Will your daughter mind?" the woman asked, sobbing. "We'll ask her right now," Max replied. Jessica was on her way to fetch her father home. Max explained the situation and said he would like to shelter the unfortunate woman. "She won't be a burden to us. And I think she could be a good help around the house, too." Of course, the woman brightened up. "Don't think I'm some sort of vagabond. I can really do anything. Cook, clean. I definitely won't be a burden at home." And so, Max and Jessica gained a neighbor, Ari, a pleasant woman around the same age as Max. Of course, they didn't know she had appeared for a reason. She had been hired by Connor Evan. He had a plan on how to finally get Max to accept help. She efficiently helped Jessica, relieving her of most of the household chores. Most importantly, she became a wonderful conversationalist for Max Allen, who was glad not to have to spend entire days alone at home anymore. Soon, he realized he didn't want Ari to leave even after she sorted out her own affairs. He was only upset that Ari, always so positive, sometimes suddenly became gloomy, sad, and closed off. He tried to find out what was wrong, but she just waved him off. Then, one day, she suddenly burst into happy laughter and announced that a distant relative, an elderly lonely woman, had left her a substantial inheritance. "This is so unexpected. I had almost forgotten about that aunt." "It turns out she remembered me after all," the woman confessed shyly. "And now I have money. Do you want to leave us?" Max asked, frowning. "Leave? Not for anything in the world. Max, I've told you before, you're more than just a landlord to me. And I thought you felt the same way about me, better than just a caregiver. Or am I mistaken? Well, if not, then I have a proposal for you. Let me pay for your surgery. It'll be a great investment. Think about it, the money won't be enough just for the apartment. Especially since you're not kicking me out. And since we're together, why shouldn't I do this?" It took some time, but Max finally agreed to this and started preparing for the surgery. He didn't know for sure if his daughter Jessica was still seeing Jasper. He didn't pry into that, especially after he had his own somewhat personal life now. As for Jess and Jasper, they never even considered stopping communication. Moreover, Jessica excelled in the company's affairs and became indispensable to her beloved. One day, during important negotiations attended by Jasper's partners, one businessman suddenly felt unwell. Panic ensued, an ambulance was called, but the man seemed not to wait. The heart attack turned out to be quite serious. Fortunately, Jessica was nearby. She hadn't forgotten what she had been taught in medical school and was able to quickly perform indirect heart massage, saving the man from certain death. When the doctors arrived, he had already regained consciousness, and everyone was amazed at Jessica's abilities. Still in the hospital, he called her over, expressing deep gratitude, promising full assistance and support. But Jessica just brushed it off, saying she needed nothing. She truly believed all her family problems were behind her. Her father's surgery would be paid for, she might soon get married. What else could she wish for? But happiness, as always, turned out to be too fleeting. One day, Max found Ari crying bitterly. He asked what was wrong, and she confessed. "Max, my dear, don't call me a savior. I'm not a savior. I'm a deceiver and an accomplice to a deceiver." And she told him the whole truth about why she had come to their house, sadly asking, "You're not very angry with me, are you?" "I'm not angry," he replied in a cold tone. "But I hope you understand you can't stay here anymore. Max, get out of my house. Go away, you snake. I can't kick you out physically, but I can call the police. So you'd better leave peacefully with your money." Ari left in tears, and Max went to the kitchen cupboard, took out a bottle of vodka kept for emergencies, unscrewed the cap, and gulped it down in one go. Yes, the blow was too serious to weather with a clear head. The money at him, and said, "Max Allen is an honest, noble man. He doesn't need this money or me." And she left. Connor Evan was furious. He had tried his best. He had twisted and turned every which way, and for what? To give that lunatic money? No way. Not a chance. And then he had kicked out that foolish Ari. Did she spill the beans herself? This is why you shouldn't get involved with these women. Instead of helping, he had only embarrassed himself. Well, let her sit in her chair for 100 years. While Connor Evans fumed helplessly around the apartment, Jasper arrived. "Dad, what's going on with you?" he asked, concerned. "That's what," his father replied, unloading everything, hoping at least to get sympathy from his son. But instead, he received reproach and mockery for such a foolish spectacle. "You're an adult. They refused your help, fine. But dragging in some aunt? And what about when rumors of your antics spread around the world? You'll die of shame." "And you're just waiting for me to die," his father retorted, now turning on him. "So you can marry that stubborn donkey's daughter. I'm not against it. Get married today. You'll be carrying pots to your father-in-law. You can leave right now. But you won't get a grandchild. Forget about it. I won't let a child's psyche be damaged. And get out of my company too. Work wherever you want. Even go be street sweepers together. The company will be mine. You're not even fit to be cleaners for me." Jasper didn't argue. He waved his hand and left the house without taking anything. He was sure his father would calm down. But the company? Yes, he'd have to give up the company. Oh well. He could always find a job, just like he could find a place to live. Moving in with Jace wasn't much of an option. He saw Audrey and Leon returning from their walk with the nanny. "Audrey K, I have to leave for a bit. You stay with Leon and Dad. He's really nervous right now. Maybe give him some valerian." "Dad, where are you going?" His son jumped into his arms. "On a business trip, little one." I'll be back soon, don't worry. And he went to the hotel to book a room. Meanwhile, Jess was beside herself with worry over her father's situation. She had never seen him drink, let alone drink this much. It didn't make sense. Everything had been fine. He was preparing for surgery, and now? And where was Ari? Did they have a falling out? In this difficult hour, Eric Troy called. The businessman who considered her his savior. Hearing his sympathetic tone, Jess burst into tears and told him about the problem that had arisen. Eric Troy was not indifferent. He rushed over immediately with some medications he intended to use to help Max. Don't worry, Jace. I'm a professor in these matters. I spent years pulling my old man out of binges. While I handle this, you tell me what's going on here. Jess told him what she knew, and her new friend declared. We'll straighten him out a bit now, and tomorrow morning he'll be back in that hospital where he was preparing for surgery. As for the money, I'll cover it. Enough with the thanks. I should have done this a long time ago. I still owe you my life, if I've forgotten. From there, everything went as he said. They got Max in order, and the next day they took him to the hospital to make sure he didn't do anything else before the surgery. And there, in the clinic, he told his personal drama. Believe me, Jessica, after my mom died, I didn't even look at another woman. And this one, well, it's embarrassing to say even from the first glance. Oh, come on, Dad. Since when is loving someone embarrassing? His daughter comforted him. But this kind? It's embarrassing. She was hired to deceive me for money. Oh, stop it. She probably didn't even know your whole story. Maybe she's crying her eyes out right now. Want me to find her and bring her to you? Don't you dare. I don't want to know about her anymore. Right now, I need to focus on how to move forward. What did the doctors say? And Jess willingly changed the subject, hoping her father would soon calm down about his unfortunate love affair. Before the operation, Maxim underwent the necessary examination. Jess, deeply worried about her father, decided to also get tested to be an immediate blood donor if needed. The doctor, reviewing her data, was surprised. But you can't be a donor for him. You're not his biological daughter. What do you mean? I am his biological daughter. We've lived together all our lives. I was born in wedlock, the girl exclaimed, astonished. This must be some mistake. There's no mistake. You just need to ask your father, or better yet, your mother, the doctor smiled. But my mother is no longer here, Jess sighed. She decided to broach this conversation with her father only after he recovered from the surgery, which thankfully went well. She started the conversation cautiously, realizing that this news could hurt her dad, cast a shadow over her mother's memory. She even considered leaving this question unanswered. What difference did it really make? She loved her father, and she didn't need anyone else. But still, she thought the question was too serious, and now that she knew part of the family secret, why not find out the whole truth? Maxim wasn't particularly surprised that his daughter knew. I wanted to tell you this earlier, even after Mom's death. But Emma didn't want to. And I forgot myself. Daughter is a daughter, what's unclear about that? In reality, I was infertile, had mumps as a child. The doctor said there was one chance in a million, and I got that chance. It turned out Emma had some women's problems, as well. So we waited 8 years, hoping for a miracle, and then adopted an infant. That was you. We got lucky. Why are you crying, Jessica? I don't know, said the daughter, wiping tears. I'm thinking about how lucky I am, and feel bad that you didn't have a biological child. Ah, silly girl. Who are you then? Not biological, perhaps? There was no one closer to me than you in my life. That's who you should feel sorry for, your biological parents. Who they were, where they came from, no one ever knew. You were found abandoned in a pram not far from home. And that pram wasn't cheap. There was a little envelope with you. But no one was looking for you, and no parents were found among the living or the dead. You were just a tiny baby. Your birthday was recorded as the day you were found. You might only be a couple of days older. That's how it is." Jessica hugged her father tightly. "Daddy, there couldn't be better parents than you and Mom. If those biological ones suddenly showed up out of nowhere, I wouldn't want anything to do with them." Several days after this conversation with her father, Jess chatted with her friends in the office. The topic turned to horoscopes and their influence on people's lives. They asked Jess about her date of birth, and she opened up. "I actually don't know my exact date of birth. I found out recently. I was abandoned, so they just picked a date based on the day I was found." "Really? How did that happen?" one of her colleagues exclaimed. "It's quite simple. They found me in a pram near an orphanage. No notes, nothing. They didn't find any biological parents either, so they chose that day. Then my not biological but real father and mother adopted me. That's all." "Wow, you're something else. Have you ever tried to find your biological parents?" the girls asked in amazement. "I only found out a few days ago." "And search? Why bother at all?" Jess shrugged. But this conversation through the slightly open door was overheard by Eric Troy. He was about to reprimand the employees for wasting time on unrelated conversations, but Jess's story suddenly intrigued him. He called her into his office and began questioning her about her father's health. She felt embarrassed by the excessive attention from the man she had rescued. It hadn't always been pleasant, although he had helped both her father's health and found her a job. Now, talking about her father, she felt he was scrutinizing her too closely. "Thank you very much, Eric Troy. Dad is getting better not day by day, but hour by hour," she replied. "He should be discharged soon. While he's still in the hospital, I'd like to visit him, if you don't mind," he said. "No, of course not. I think he'd be happy to see you," Jess replied, giving him the address. What the men talked about alone is unknown, but Eric Troy himself brought Maxim home. They exchanged glances with the surprised daughter and told her that her biological father is now the boss. "I had a fiancée, Camilla. Well, I thought she was my fiancée. That we had love and all that. Turns out, I had just started my business then. Money was tight and hopes were very fragile. She got pregnant, but didn't seem to want the baby and wasn't much interested in me. I barely convinced her not to get rid of the baby. That is, you. I thought she'd come to her senses for this reason. No chance. You weren't even born yet, and she was already running away from me. Poor me wasn't needed. She cursed me at every meeting for not letting her get rid of it. Then she ran away, and no one knew where. I thought she gave birth somewhere and lived there, but it looks like she gave birth at home, which is why there was no information about you. Her grandmother was a midwife or something like that. I came to this grandmother later, asking where Olga was, where the child was, and she kept silent. But by the date, it turns out, you are like her. That's why I'm looking at you so closely. Unbelievable." "And where is this Camilla now?" asked Jess. "I don't know. Haven't seen or heard from her since then. There were some rumors, but nothing pleasant. I didn't actively search either. At first, I was hurt, and then I just forgot about it altogether." "Well, that's good," Jess said. "I don't really want to find out anything about her either. And honestly, I never searched for my father either. Let alone talking about the mother who did such a thing. My father will remain the same as he always was. Eric Troy, I respect you and have reasons to thank you. But not as a father, I'm sorry. Yes, I understand. And I'm ready to do anything to make amends. I'll always be there, ready to help if needed in any matter. I never had other children, so. And you're getting married soon, as I understand it," Eric Troy said. Jessica was about to say she didn't need his help with that, but Maxim interrupted, embarrassedly saying, "Not just her." "Wait, what? Who else?" Jess didn't understand. "Me, friends. Ari and I made up. She came to see me in the hospital. So, we've decided to be together from now on, not to part ways. At Jesse Jasper's wedding, there were 2 fathers and a newly minted stepmother present. In the midst of the festivities, Jesse's father suddenly appeared. He realized his mistake and decided to reconcile with his son. I hope that on this most important day of your life, you will understand and forgive me. And I hope we won't be strangers. Especially now that you have your own family. I wouldn't want to be unnecessary. Jasper hugged his father, and they realized there were no real disagreements between them. After all, they were family and would remain so forever. Well, the fatherhood headcount keeps growing, the happy Maxim joked. I hope another one won't appear. There definitely will, but not today, but in a few months. Jasper will be a father again, and our child will be the most special grandchild. Not every child has 3 grandfathers right from the start, Jess announced to the joyous men.